Hello everyone, this is part 37 of What If Naruto Was a One-of-a-Kind Genius, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Yugao stared at Naruto with an expressionless mask. He was busy with weapons, scrolls. She knew something was up. He had said it himself. But he wasn't telling her what he was going to do. It seems to her that she has been reduced to a housewife. The excuse that she was protecting his mother could no longer apply. Not in this picture when they were safe within the village. Kushina wasn't exactly defenseless even. She was capable of protecting herself. Did Naruto forget that she is a former Anbu? She has done many missions. So many dangerous things, but Naruto still kept her out of the danger as if she were a child and he was the adult. Was he going to come with the lame excuse that she couldn't know because she was too young? What other reason was there? Their personal relationship was fine. He was going to smile when she walks into the room. That would be pleasant. But Yugao wanted more. The smile wasn't enough. She wanted him to brief her on his plans. You are brooding, Naruto said without looking at Yugao. I expect that from Sasuke. He will probably be brooding when he comes back from Iwa. Of course he felt her presence. Her stare didn't even make things subtle. Though curious, he hadn't asked. It had been a happy night for them, the night before. There shouldn't be any problem unless she was here to accuse him of something. Yugao stepped into the room. Why all the weapons when you only use a sword in battle? 2 swords at least. You used to use 2 in your Anbu days. Delightful days had been. But these weapons are not for me. They are my students. Yugao stopped. Naruto said something. It surprised her. She wasn't even expecting him to say that. He could be a good sensei. But who would give him students to train? He would probably create war machines. The students would truly be taught. Naruto didn't lazy off his duties after all. I don't think you'd accept a genin team. Yugao said. I will be training future Uchihas. Naruto said before turning to face Yugao. The long face. Yugao wanted to press on with the training part, but she wasn't here for it. I'm getting bored sitting around. I'm considering returning to Anbu. Or just become a normal shinobi. I haven't decided, but I am thinking about it. Naruto stared for a moment. This is unexpected, he said. He went back to fondling with weapons. I suppose I should have expected this. With being a Kunoichi, there is still much you can offer. What has my mother said about this? Yugao smiled bitterly. Of course his mother would come up. He was probably thinking about her than her decision or thoughts. She has always known competing with Kushina was impossible. But she was a woman. She had her pride. She was second. But now there was Mikoto. She was third or fourth. Yugao shook her head. She was at it again. I haven't spoken to her about it. I see. Naruto turned to face her. Yugao couldn't read him. His face was just expressionless. I don't know what her reaction will be. I am a little disappointed. But I can make other plans. You can do what you think is best for you. There was no emotion in his words. It bothered Yugao. She didn't want to get into an argument with Naruto after last night. I'm sure she will understand. It is safer in the village now. There is no need to worry that much. Far from it, Naruto said. His voice was cold. There is a man who threatened to harm her. But you can do as you please. I don't think your presence would do anything in the situation anyway. What is that supposed to mean? Naruto tilted his head to the side. Yugao really seemed to be having a problem with him. He really wasn't in the mindset to play games. He is strong. Not someone you can deal with. No offense to your skills. None taken, Yugao said. I was thinking you'd more willing to fight me over this. It is pointless. I can't control your desires. You should know I never compromise on my mother. I will make other arrangements. Naruto said. Anything else? What are you planning? Before Naruto could respond, Ino walked into the room. She greeted Yugao politely and then moved closer to Naruto. She got a little too close. Sorry I am late. My mother wouldn't stop with the lectures. She was looking directly at his eyes. Naruto had a raised brow. Are you trying to piss off, Yugao? He asked calmly. He was unconcerned that she had both her hands on his shoulders, standing directly in front of him, looking as if she was about to lean in for a K. It was easy to misunderstand the situation. But he wasn't concerned. Ino smiled slyly. Is it working? Naruto glanced at Yugao for a moment before responding. Yes. If you soon, I know who you. Would you let that happen? Naruto smiled. Who knows, he said. Ino pulled away and faced Yugao. You're already familiar with Ino. His dearest friend, Ino added with a smile. Yugao smiled. She forgot about the blonde. She would not say Ino was exaggerating to say she was Naruto's dearest friend. Naruto cared for the girl than he was willing to admit. The fact that he was willing to tolerate that kind of behavior from her meant more about their relationship. Speaking of which, what did these people even do when they're alone? A part of her believed Ino liked Naruto. She wouldn't have any reason to act the way she does unless she had some feelings for her. Kushina even spoke fondly of her. She'd said that she had planned for Naruto to either marry Temari or this girl. The latter had a better understanding of Naruto. Apparently, Yugao said, I'm going to look for Kakashi. You have a safe journey. And Naruto. Yes. Don't forget who you share your bed with, Yugao said before walking away from the room. Well, someone isn't happy, Ino said. You or Yugao? Why would I be displeased? That you don't share your bed with me. Naruto said flatly. Ino glared. I will convince your mother to plot an arranged marriage with me. She has always listened to me. I doubt if I come with my parents, your mother would refuse. And knowing you, you wouldn't refuse your mother. You devious little thing. I wish you were more like Hinata. He said. Ino shrugged. Being devious would be if I went to your mother crying. And then tell her that you took my innocence and then refused to marry me. Naruto blinked before laughing. I can see you pulling that off, Ino. My mother would be most ashamed of her son. I'm certain a marriage contract would be signed then and there. I know, so you must behave. This just sounds like when we were younger, Ino. I have to say, I am rather fond of those days. I did see the life of a child. You were more cooperative those days. And you always sat by a tree reading a book. But you always dragged me along and made me get you out of trouble. Well, that was your duty. And it still is. A black knight, huh? There was comfortable silence for a few moments before Naruto spoke again. Did you pack everything? Yes. Your bag. Mother has it. She was with your mother, by the way. They are at the store. She wants to talk to you before we leave. Naruto frowned. Why? I am mother's precious daughter. I thought you were your father's little angel. Naruto said. Ino glared. Yes, says mommy's little dark angel. Naruto was amused. Dark angel. That is perhaps fitting, he said. I will finish here when we return. Let us, he said. Yamanaka flower shop. My daughter has been spending time with your son again, Ino's mother said. She stressed the last word. Her eyes were staring delicately at Kushina. The reed head Uzumaki nodded. She knew. She was the one who pushed Ino into Naruto's life. Then again, she didn't have many friends. Naruto needed Ino then. This woman before her was her friend. She sometimes came to help here, as she was now. These people had been good to her. They had been good to her family. She didn't exactly like where this was going. But Naruto and Ino were growing. They were 17. Well, Naruto had already beat his age group. He was going to be a father. Ino was still a young beautiful girl with a bright future. It wasn't to say Naruto's future was dark. He was just, well, Naruto. I heard. Not exactly the old days. But I am glad they are being friendly again. Kushina said. She smiled. The other woman also smiled. I haven't had much contact with Naruto since then. Ino has always been fond of him. So has Naruto. Kushina said. Although he had Sasuke, they were never friends. But Ino was his friend. His only true friend. Perhaps it will end that way. Perhaps. Ino's mother paused for a moment. You should see her smile when she speaks about him. It is quite delightful. You should see Naruto's scowl when Ino's name comes up. They stared at each other before bursting into laughter. Perhaps he liked it that way. Those who mattered knew, but Naruto would never admit it. Well, it was different these days since he does smile. I sometimes don't get how they get along. Well, Ino's personality fits well. She understands him, even if she doesn't, she still knows how to talk to him. Naruto is still able to hold a conversation with anyone. Kushina said. Are you concerned? Naruto is in a relationship with Yugao-san, isn't he? Kushina nodded quietly. Yes, she said. I would have preferred someone younger, but Naruto doesn't get along with girls his age. Except Ino. Yes, except Ino. There was silence once more. It wasn't tense. Both were just held up in their thoughts. It lasted about 2 minutes before Ino's mother spoke once more. Why? Kushina understood the question clearly. I never asked. I don't know if Naruto will ever truly love anyone except for me, but I know he cares. I think some part of him values Ino too much that he thinks it would be best for her happiness if she loved someone else. Ino is demanding. Naruto won't always be there. He isn't always nice. But he has always been careful with my daughter. Because he cares for her. Maybe if he thought he could give her the love she deserves, he would have chosen her. Maybe I am wrong, there is another reason. Kushina, what if my daughter cannot love anyone else, but continues to be around him? They are getting too close these days. Yes, Naruto spends more time with her than with his mother. Both shared a laugh for a moment before it got serious again. What do you suggest? Ino is only 17. She has time to love someone else. If Naruto cannot bring himself to be with her, then he should consider what is best for her. Aren't you forgetting, Yugao? She is still in mind. Believe me. But is Naruto going to marry her? Yugao was a Anbu. She is already much older than Naruto. He is Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki. He is going to outlive her by many years. Kushina had thought of a marriage between Naruto and Yugao. Naruto had even agreed to it. But the conversation ended there. Perhaps Yugao thought of it. But Kushina was certain that it was something far from Naruto's mind. She couldn't even picture him doing a wedding. But he could do it for Ino. Just to indulge her. He seemed to indulge her in every little thing she requests. That is a possibility. Kushina shook her head. Given how long Mito lived, I'm certain I will also outlive Yugao. But she wasn't going to stand in her way. She wouldn't do that. She would not dictate that for Naruto. But I will speak to him about it. The other woman smiled. Children, we must look after them even they though grow up so fast. She shook her head. Earth country. It was ridiculous. Who could have thought that someone would plot for a war at this time? Despite what some people might say, there was relative peace in the elemental nations. The great 5 nations were not fighting. While Konoha was not all friendly with the Wagakur because of the past war, they were not fighting. Nobody was plotting anything. They were minding their own business. This is the shinobi world. Young Genins had a saying, old enough to K, old enough to drink. Everything was just wrong with the mentality of people. Sasuke would be more than willing to hunt down the person who was planning to start this war. It was especially a concern since the problem was caused by someone who bears the Uchiha name. It didn't matter if he was a fake Madara or not. The fact was that he was ruining the reputation of the Uchiha. He knew. Maybe the other nations might not know, but he knew, Konoha knew. The cynical and paranoid people who sit at the top of the village would be more than willing to ride this wave to try to push the clan away. If they ever learned that the clan once thought of a coup, they would become enemies of Konoha. There was little chance of that happening. Naruto was efficient in managing information. Secretive things remained secret. It wouldn't even surprise Sasuke if he went on a spree to protect secrets. But as things stood, the situation was tricky. It was manageable. He might not agree with everything Naruto has in mind, but he did not want a war. He was willing to do anything to stop it. It didn't matter if he was in the way of Naruto's plans. It wasn't like the blonde would plot for his demise. Or, would he? Sasuke had to stop at the thought. Naruto was rational. If he nationalized that it was safe with him out of the picture, would he go through it? Sasuke shook his head. No, he wouldn't. It wasn't like he was that easy to K anyway. Even for Naruto. Sasuke glanced at the Mizukage. She was sitting on a small rock. They were resting. A Wagakur wasn't far away. They would be there soon. The woman had explained things to him. But Sasuke understood she didn't know everything. She seemed to trust Naruto though. How much do you trust Naruto? Sasuke suddenly asked. His eyes were firmly on the Godime Mizukage. Mei smiled. Well, that is a curious question, she said. She had no intention of answering the question. How much do you trust, Naruto? She wasn't going to answer his question. Sasuke got that much by looking at her smile. He has learned that the Mizukage wasn't a simple person. She was smart, a sly woman who could make him uncomfortable. She certainly knew how to deal with people. It really made him curious about how she handled Naruto. Considering everything. Enough to get by with him, Sasuke said with a shrug. If she wasn't going to give him an answer, he wasn't going to give anything clear either. As if she had expected his response, the Mizukage continued smiling, but there was a glint in her eyes. You are not stupid. Although Naruto is manipulative, he doesn't surround himself with idiots. You are also very powerful. I understand Naruto is very powerful himself, how do you compare to him? When we were younger, he trained me. He would not say the blonde more or less bullied him. It was the past, something that couldn't happen again. You did mention that you have known him for a while. Why is your relationship with him so complex? Because of our personalities. We are different people. I don't always agree with Naruto on most things. I have my goals, dreams. May laughed. And Naruto happened to be the safe bet to achieving them, huh? Everyone wanted something. And people were willing to do anything to get what they wanted. But May didn't think Naruto was ignorant of Sasuke's motives. He was far too cautious not to know something obvious. Well, if he has chosen to ignore it, she wasn't going to say anything to him. What of dreams? The future? Sasuke didn't say anything further. May did not press. She was curious, but she was unlikely to get anything from Sasuke even if she pressed. You still haven't answered my question. In your younger days, Naruto was stronger than you, what about now? I'm confident I can win. But, Naruto isn't an Uchiha, but he understands the Sharingan far better than I do. For Naruto, winning isn't all about power. He doesn't even like doing battles. May raised an eyebrow. Why? I don't know. For someone who has spent so much time training, I wonder why. Perhaps he finds battles boring when fighting someone he doesn't think has a chance winning. May contemplated the thought for a couple of seconds. But Naruto wasn't a battle-hungry person. That much she knew. Nevertheless, there was some sense in Sasuke's words. What is your goal? Sasuke asked May. You don't seem like the kind of person who'd agree to Naruto's plots, but you seem to get along with him. Oh, May smiled. What kind of plots does Naruto have? Was she baiting him? Sasuke couldn't tell, but she didn't appear fazed by his words. What do you understand about Naruto? He is cold and doesn't care about humans in particular unless they are in his little cycle. He has kindness in him. He understands love, but it is reserved for the few. He is very meticulous, and is capable for anything really. Good and evil. May said. He is an interesting person. Even if he does good, it's merely out of principle. Evil. Convenience. May paused. But enough about Naruto. Sasuke nodded. What do you plan to achieve by coming here? Dialogue with a Wagakur. I also thought it was safer for me to be friends with Iwa than ignore them when Naruto can do more damage. If you understand some of Naruto's thoughts, you'd want to kill him. But he isn't power hungry. He has no lust for power. He can be corrupted if he gets too much of it. Someone like me is needed in the picture to diffuse things. Sasuke was silent for a full minute. Who warned you about him? The Hokage. May said. My desires can be realized. I just need to play my cards right. I think the same is for you. Yes, would you betray Naruto? May shook her head. Never. The thought hasn't even crossed my mind. Sasuke managed to smile, but he didn't say anything. Not for a couple of minutes anyway. I might become Hokage. Admittedly, I'm not suited for the position. Naruto avoids it, but I know if he became Hokage, he'd do a good job. He wants you to become Hokage. Sasuke nodded. And he is willing to do things to help me. May didn't even want to think about what kind of things Naruto was willing to do. The blonde was capable of many things. The Godime paused. Hadn't they said they were going to stop talking about Naruto? But now, they were back at it. How about you ruin that idea by working on the sides to put him in the position? May liked the idea. It would put him the spot. He would be forced to act in a way he didn't want to. Sasuke knew why Naruto didn't consider the position. The reason was simple. But even without that reason, the Hyuga did not love him. And the clan held the most political power. But Naruto had plans. He had Hinata. He had the feudal lord. He had the Yamanaka and the Uchiha. He just had to sort things out with Tsunade. A couple of good years and the woman wouldn't mind making him her successor. Well, that was something he could work towards. His focus would be on his clan. He could not give his all to both. He had seen it with Itachi. It was either the clan or the village. Sasuke wanted his clan to prosper. At least he would be able to keep an eye on Naruto. He dismissed the idea, but it's not a bad thought, he smiled. The villagers already have a positive opinion of him. Whilst he likes playing behind closed doors, he isn't exactly invisible. If he had been Naruto and wanted to make a name for himself, he would gladly let the war happen and even fuel it. Oh, Naruto was very much capable of doing that. I assume so, Mei said. But he doesn't have to know. And even if he finds out, you don't have to feel obliged to follow his demands. It would be much better than being a puppet to the blonde. But it would be difficult working it out. Naruto would notice it and he would try to counter it. The simple way was to try to get both Hinata and his mother involved. The Hyuga was treated so fashionably by the blonde. Naruto wouldn't dismiss her opinion easily. Or maybe he would. Naruto could be cold at times. That is a thought, Sasuke said. If possible, I will try to talk to the Tsuchikage's granddaughter. Probably as an envoy of Konoha. He would decide when he does see her. I can arrange it for you while I speak with the Tsuchikage. If he has already received a message from Kumogakur, then it is going to be a troublesome situation. It's at least good that I am going. Naruto's father isn't exactly famous in Iwa. If we are going to be talking about war, his name will come up since he uses the same jutsu as his father and is still a Jinchuriki. Given his personality, Naruto would be willing to people without blinking. Not that you wouldn't do the same, Mei said. Sasuke didn't respond. He wasn't exactly a monk. The reason he sometimes agreed with Naruto's plans was because he could be just as cold. He wouldn't say he was better. But if there was a need for it, Sasuke would unleash his power to do what had to be done. He wouldn't cry about it. We should move. Unknown location. Humans could truly be unpredictable. Nothing was sure. Emotions changed every day. This is why Obito preferred to have puppets he could willfully manipulate than people who could think for themselves. He should have worked the same trick he did with the Yondai Mizukage on Nagato. None of this would be happening. He wouldn't be sitting here trying to figure out things with only a single Jinchuriki to his name and the Rinnegan far away from him. He was certain getting it from the two wouldn't be easy. Konan and Nagato were not weak people after all. But he would strike soon. Very soon. He needed to deal with the little mischievous person that was Naruto. Not even everything was going as planned. All because humans were unpredictable. But he needed the Rinnegan. Perhaps if he got it, he would then show Naruto what despair is. The blonde still had his loved ones. What would happen if they right before his eyes? At least with KB running away from Kumo, getting him would be easy. There would be no Kumo to interfere. With the Raikage heading to Konoha, trouble with Konoha was unlikely to start. The Hidden Leaf would reject everything, but the Raikage would still be wary. That end game didn't please him. He had something much more sinister planned up. It was something that would perhaps even get the Raikage to think twice about Konoha's denials. The village doesn't have a good past after all. Sasuke-kun is heading to Iwagakure with the Mizukage, Zetsu said as he appeared out of nowhere. Are we going to stop the Raikage? Obito shook his head. No, he said. I have something planned for Sasuke and the Mizukage. We will intercept them with a pleasant surprise. Zetsu nodded. Naruto, once we are done in Iwa, there should be a window of opportunity for us to take the Rinnegan. Once we have it, we will be closer to our dream. I will take what Naruto values and see if he cannot have the same desire as I do. Konohagakure, Hokage office. Tsunade sighed tiredly. With Naruto and Sasuke away, the village was quitter. Not to mention that Jiraiya wasn't here either. If he was here, there would be complaints from women across the village. An unnecessary headache, but one she could not avoid no matter what. With the absence of those three, there was still no time to relax. No time to think things. No time to forget about what to do should a war happen. She had Shikaku thinking about strategies. But there were internal battles that now laid bare for her to fight. The political battles within the village were truly intensifying. She was at least glad someone like Naruto wasn't sticking his nose into it. It would be problematic if he was. Everyone wanted power. Not everyone was liked. The clan heads had their opinions. But she had her own thoughts. She was still Hokage. They wouldn't force her to do anything. The Hyuga's movements were worrying. It was especially a problem since they were now aligned with Danzo's old teammates. A problem duo, but she would handle them. Speaking of the devil, Tsunade looked up as Hiashi walked into the office. She wasn't expecting him. She was waiting for Kakashi. Not this man. Tsunade-sama. Hiashi greeted smoothly. As respectful as always. Well, it was just formalities. The Hyuga were infamous for observing them. Hiashi-san, what can I do for you? The man asked if he could sit. For a moment, Tsunade thought of saying no, but she permitted it instead, waiting for the man to open his mouth and start with conspiracy theories regarding Naruto. I wish to talk about Naruto is his influence in the village. As far as I am concerned, what you are saying doesn't exist. Tsunade said in a sharp tone. She wasn't going to be welcoming to this man. Not when he had ulterior motives. Hiashi wasn't stupid. Far from it. Perhaps not now, but in the future there is bound to be influence. It would be naive to think that he is simply going to sit back. This village hasn't done him any good and he certainly doesn't care for it. Hiashi said. Perhaps we should have done better then, but regardless of the past, Konoha's future is much more important than anything. I'm also thinking about my clan. I'm sure you can understand that. Clan heads. Damn clan heads. Annoying people who really liked playing games. Tsunade was fine with it when they did it in their little meetings, but she didn't like it when it came to her playing field. Where is this going, Hiashi? There must be measures taken to ensure that Naruto doesn't meddle. But of course, if you don't think Naruto is a manipulative person who has no loyalty for Konoha, I can just leave now. Hiashi stared at Tsunade, daring her to say otherwise. Tsunade could not. She wanted to, but she could not. It was the truth after all. She knew it. The clan heads knew it. It was why some of them had insisted on keeping an eye on him and his movements. You'd think you'd at least be grateful for what Naruto did for your daughter. You had cast her aside, but Naruto took care of her. He made her strong and taught her some important values. She paused and stared. Can you even say without doubt that he corrupted your daughter? She didn't want to be defending the blonde. He was after all not a very nice person. But even Tsunade was not willing to call him a traitor. There were many things that were wrong with Naruto, but what he did with Hinata was extraordinary. It also said much about his character. I am very thankful, believe me. And I did thank him. There was bitterness in Hiashi's tone. It is a bitter pill to swallow, but undeniably, Naruto gave my daughter the tools to make her mentally and physically strong while maintaining her innocence and kindness. I accept that, but it does not change who he is. I'm not saying it changes anything, but I wanted you to look at the positives. Tsunade said with a shrug. I don't have a problem with you being wary of Naruto. Any person would be. But if you do something, like start a campaign like Koharu tried to do, you will regret it, Hiashi. Naruto hasn't done anything to harm Konoha. We have been working well together. It also seems to me that you have forgotten what his father did for this village. I have not forgotten. I will never forget. But I cannot ignore what is in front of me. The Fire Lord speaks highly of him. Unsurprisingly, since he went there a couple of times with Sandaime. I suspect that he might also be the father of Mikoto-san's child. The man said with disgust. My daughter is very fond of him. It would be stupid to think he would not ask for favors if he needs them. The connections, Hokage-sama, are what worries me. Tsunade looked thoughtful for a moment. I see, that was all Tsunade said. I am not unreasonable. He trailed off when he heard a knock on the door. Kakashi walked into the office. I can come back later, he said. Tsunade shook her head. She faced Hiashi and spoke. If you're a reasonable person, you will speak to Naruto when he is around. A conversation with him should do. You will get a clear understanding of things, she said. Anything else? Hiashi responded by bidding farewell to the Godime Hokage and acknowledged Kakashi before walking out of the office. What was that about? Kakashi asked casually. Politics, Tsunade said before leaning against her chair. Talking to him, I said something that I don't understand myself. You had a very good relationship with him when he was younger. Tell me, why did Naruto train Hinata in the way he did? Kakashi looked thoughtful for a moment before sitting down. At that point of his life, Naruto was surrounded by people who hated him and his mother. He was disgusted by human behavior. I think at some point, he started seeing Konoha's people as no longer humans but something else. I think that is how he was able to tolerate them. Naruto had to watch his mother in pain. The villagers hated them. He resented them. He resented humans. Hinata was this pure innocent young girl. When he saw her, he saw a person. Someone he could like. Someone who deserved to be called a human. Despite all his ways, he could not corrupt that. He wanted to preserve it. It perhaps made him realize that not everyone was bad. The reason Naruto traveled a lot was because the Sandaime realized that if Naruto didn't see other people, he was likely to resent all of humanity. I think at some point, Naruto wouldn't have minded everyone else was wiped out of this world. But that was the past. He has changed, a little. I don't know if he is still able to act in the same way he did back then. After a couple of moments of silence, Tsunade spoke. Well, that explains things. He won't go on a AK spree. Let us be honest, he doesn't care about people. But still won't go through that. However, if people are evil, he cannot tolerate them. So, he settles for influencing them to make them tolerable. Kakashi smiled. That was a nice way to put it. Scouts have reported that the Raikage is on his way to the Fire Country. He is probably coming here. I want you to intercept him and lead him back to the village. When you have time to rest, you will write a report detailing his mood and thoughts so that I can prepare a proper welcome for him. Tsunade said. She took out a scroll. He is being watched. The scroll contains coordinates for the rendezvous location. It was a good move. But Tsunade wasn't the one who usually made such moves. It really did surprise Kakashi. He didn't let it show. The situation was delicate. Am I departing now? Yes, Tsunade said with a nod. Kakashi nodded. He stood up. I will prepare myself. With Kakashi gone, Tsunade stared into the empty space ahead of her. It was worrying that had suddenly decided to travel to the Hidden Leaf. Something else had to have come up. Something troubling. It made her head ache. It made her worry about the reasons. She just had to wait for Kakashi's letter. Perhaps it was best that Naruto wasn't in the village. But she would have liked it if Jiraiya was present. Shizune walked into the office minutes later. You look stressed, she said. There is just a lot to deal with, Tsunade said. And I can't even think of quitting with how things are politically. I'm afraid my successor will not have a pleasant time. I will be best to continue a little longer. You haven't been in the office for that long, Shizune reminded. Tsunade shrugged. It feels like I have been here for over a decade. I don't know how the old man managed to pull through wars, the QB incident. Well, he was the professor, Shizune said. Tsunade merely nodded. It wasn't to say the old man had been perfect. He made mistakes but the village always stayed strong in those mistakes. In cases he had to rise up, he would. A truly remarkable leader. Hiashi said something about Naruto and the feudal lord. Remind me to inquire about it the next time I stand before him. Is there something fishy? Nothing as yet. He said the relationship was started before I came back to the village. Naruto had a close relationship with the old man. He was usually present when the third went out to the village for diplomatic meetings. Tsunade paused, thinking. She shook her head. Naruto doesn't generally like people. There has to be a reason he even bothered. There is always a reason, isn't it? Tsunade nodded. Well, that is the world in which we live in, she said. I wonder how people will react when they find out about him and Mikoto-san. It won't be a big deal, Shizune said. I'm sure they will whisper about it on that day and on the next. It will be a reality and another Uchiha in the making. They do love the Uchiha. Tsunade had a twisted look on the thought. But that was all due to the tragedy with Itachi. If not for that, it would have been something else. Earth Country. Sasuke's senses flared up when he sensed something from below. He quickly leapt into the air. A white Zetsu clone burst from the ground, its upper body opened up. The Uchiha felt his chakra being absorbed before he flashed to a tree branch next to Mei. Godai Mizukage was standing still, on guard. Sasuke surveyed the area for a moment before his Sharingan turned to Zetsu. Another presence caught his attention. Mei as well. He narrowed his eyes when he saw the orange mask. The lone Sharingan. Uchiha. His Sharingan spun wildly with the M's threatening to grace this view. Mizukage, Uchiha Sasuke, Obito stated in a calm tone. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Such a presence at this time. This was deliberate. This was purposeful. Naruto had foreseen this. Was this person going to stop them? Was he going to stand in the way? The Mizukage wasn't a defenseless woman. Sasuke had already noticed with the way she carried herself. If a battle ensured, he wouldn't need to worry about her. He would only have to worry about his battle. Naruto said we might not make it, but I didn't think he meant this, Sasuke said to Mei. Mei ignored the fact that Naruto suspected they might be ambushed but never bothered to talk to her about it. He must have also talked to Sasuke sometime before the Uchiha came to her for their trip. Naruto found them at the gates and didn't say anything of noteworthy. The Mizukage stared at Madara for a long minute. Yagura had been manipulated by someone. The Sharingan by Ao's observations. Could this be the person behind it? There hadn't been a reason for the senseless purges Yagura incited. It was just pure madness. Then again, some people do say Yagura had always been a bit mad. But it didn't change the fact that he has been under manipulation by the time of his death. I'd assumed that Naruto would be with you, but this just works fine, Obito said calmly. You are going to Iwagakure to try to have some sort of relationship for peace. I won't stop you, but I do assure you, you will have a pleasant surprise when you get there. He disappeared along with White Zetsu after saying those words. Those words didn't make Mei comfortable. She was certain the surprise would be nasty. But she wasn't going to stop. She was already close to the village. They were about 30 minutes away from the hidden stone. They couldn't stop now. We have to continue with our journey, at a faster pace. She was already rushing away when she said those words. Konoha, you do know that staring at me like that isn't going to change anything, right? Kushina said to Yugao. She was sitting with Karen, on the other side of the compound. The said redhead was sitting with papers, designing the layout of her lab. It seemed that when it was the subject of science, she could talk. Kushina had no interest, nor would she claim to even understand half of the things the girl said, but she indulged her. She wanted to know more about the girl who was going to become part of her family. More about a fellow Uzumaki. Karen didn't even look up hearing Yugao. She had already sensed her. But she really didn't have anything to say to Yugao. Kushina was fine. They could get along. Perhaps because they had the same bee rushing through their veins. She was also most excited about learning how to use chakra chains. Seals were a no-go for her. She would stick to science. Yugao hesitated for a moment before walking into the room. She settled down beside Kushina and glanced at Karen for a moment before speaking. I wanted to speak to you about something. I guess I can say it even before her. Karen looked up for a moment. Her? She asked with a raised eyebrow. I do have a name. Yugao ignored Karen. The younger Uzumaki didn't bother pressing about being ignored. She had better things to do than argue with a woman who seemed to dislike her for some reason. It didn't seem that Kushina had a problem with it. She had been amused the other day. Perhaps she had been missing a bit of drama in her family. It must be important, Kushina said. What is it? I wish to return to active duty. Kushina stared for a long minute without saying anything. She wasn't the one who said Yugao must quit being Anbu. She had decided on her own. The Sandaime had brought her to their family because she had been heartbroken after the loss of her loved one. She was fine now. She was happy. But she was still a former Anbu. She was in her prime years. At the very peak of her career. She could still serve for many years. She wasn't worried. She wasn't going to be bored. She didn't feel the need to have someone watching her back in this village. If something dangerous was happening, Naruto would appear in a flash. That aside, she had Mikoto to worry about. She would be spending time with the woman and some time at the flower shop. Why? I'm curious. Lately, I've found myself sitting in the house all day long. I grow bored. I'm going to lose it. Besides that, Naruto is hardly at home these days, Yugao said. There are things to do. He is grown. He doesn't have to be around his mother all the time. I know, Yugao said with a nod. It was a pleasant change that Naruto was now able to leave for longer periods. I'm over my problems. I think it will be good for me to get some air outside of the village. Kushina nodded. You can do that without going back, but that is your decision alone to make. I cannot make it for you, she said in a firm tone. What has Naruto said about it? He said he is going to make other plans for you. There was bitterness in Yugao's tone. Even Karen sensed it. The redhead had to bite her lip stop from whistling at the amount of bitterness the woman just displayed. Naruto hadn't shown his thoughts about her decision. No question about her well-being. Not even an attempt to change her mind. It was a cold reminder of the kind of person she was living with. It wasn't pleasant. It made her think of the precious days she had with Hayate. Those days were gone. He was she was alive. She just could not connect with Naruto. Even if they connect, it would only be for a moment, then he would go back to normal. She knew what she was getting herself into. She has known. Kushina had told her. But she still wanted it. She has dragged on for all this time. Was she getting tired now? He said that, Kushina said. While she could see the bitterness in Yugao's face, she didn't comment on it. Do what makes you happy, Yugao. My son does what pleases him, so should you. I can't be content with you being miserable, she said with a smile. Will you be okay if I go? I'm not a helpless woman, you know. Yugao managed to smile. Well, with how Naruto treats you, you'd think you were helpless. He acts like his mother can't do anything. He is just being Naruto, Kushina said. Go do what pleases you. Thank you, Kushina. Thank you for everything. Yugao stood up. She was going to speak to the Godime Hokage about her job. Her mind was made up. Once Yugao was gone, Kushina sighed deeply. Naruto made her worry sometimes. It was no wonder Yugao failed to change him. She could not connect with him emotionally. They were not in the same wavelength. Why didn't she see this earlier? Trouble in paradise? Karen asked. Kushina blinked. I don't know. Maybe. I don't even think Naruto is aware, she said with a shake of her head. Sunagakure. The hidden sand. A windy village. Its natural environment was violent. It wasn't beautiful and wealthy like that in the Fire Nation. The land was desolate. Food came from other nations. A treacherous world. The desert had no life. It was just windy, warm and signaled death when violent storms desert to go for a dance. This village was wrapped away from the storms. It was safely hidden. A village truly hidden in sand. The people seemed lively. Everything seemed normal. This was foreign land. Ino was walking within the streets, her left hand holding tightly onto Naruto. She could afford to do this. To walk like this. A smile on her lips. Content that he indulged her. He wasn't going to say people would think. He didn't care about that. Besides, she was his. Her dark knight. Her beloved friend. It has been that way since they were young and it would continue. She did not seek to be separated from this person, who she had to force to show some emotion. She liked him just as he was. He wouldn't be her Naruto if he was any different. She glanced at Naruto for a moment. He was familiar with this village. It was perhaps his second home. He had spent time in this village after the Uchiha incident. Naruto had been closer to Itachi. A cruel time that had been. But in this village, there was a woman he could have married. A woman who Shikamaru said had admired Naruto. For the way he treated her. For how strong he was. For the moments they spent together. It was in the past now. There was none of that. Thinking of this, Ino couldn't help but conclude that if Naruto wanted admirers, he wouldn't be short of them. He had his way of doing things. He was capable of showing kindness when the situation called for it. Nay, Naruto, if Sunagakure hadn't invaded Konoha, do you think you would still be contracted to marry Temari? Naruto didn't need to think deeply about the response. Quite possibly, it was logical. Their relationship hadn't been bad. Temari wasn't an annoying person. He had grown to indulge her as he had with Ino. But she was strong though. Very different from her younger self. He could have killed them. But he did not. She had asked him not to do it because they didn't know anything. Kankuro had confirmed it. Perhaps the puppet master was the only person in all of Suna he would never like. Of course, Baki had to be in the picture. Him would have been irrational given his uses. Why do you ask? I just wonder what things would be like if certain events hadn't happened. A pointless exercise that only makes you bitter. Naruto said sharply. You cannot change the past. What if? It makes you miserable. You obsess over what might have been. I would rather choose to think about what will be. That is because you are Naruto and are always moving things, Ino said with a nudge on his shoulder. It's rather nice here. It has always been. It is why this was always our safe house when we grew tired of Konoha, Naruto said. Why did I bring you here with me, Ino? You wanted to be with me. Naruto wasn't amused. Ino frowned. Disappointed he didn't take her bait. Disappointed he didn't indulge her. I want you to train, go around this village and study it. Its defenses, important places. If you wanted to sneak in at night, how'd you go through that? If you get caught, you fail. Ino frowned. That would be difficult. She wasn't that good. She would get caught, and knowing Naruto, it wasn't simply going to be easy. And here she thought she was going to enjoy some free time. She should have known better. Naruto removed Ino's headband and then gave her a Wagakure forehead protector. This should make things interesting. I wish to see how you handle yourself being caught. Do you want me to get K? Naruto shrugged. They'll just drag you to their secret little chambers and tee you if you don't give them satisfying answers. He said. Ino cringed. On second thoughts, she didn't want to be doing this anymore. I will be watching in case things turn for the worst, he said with a reassuring smile before disappearing via gusts of wind. Ino stood still for a moment before shaking her head. She had to do this. All the training. She had to pass this test. It wouldn't be the end if she fails. Kazekage office. It wasn't often that Naruto brought company with him when he walked through the streets of the hidden sand. Whenever it happened, there was always a reason behind the move. It was Naruto after all. Temari had been a bit surprised to hear of the blonde's presence in the village with a fellow blonde. A woman with him. Temari didn't know what to say. He had Yugao at Konoha and he was unashamedly walking around with another woman. It was the way they walked that raised eyebrows. Temari shook her head. This was Naruto she was thinking about. Appearances didn't always mean anything. He wouldn't display affection in such a manner. Then again, the woman he was with apparently had her way with him. A strange thing. But it was the truth. When the blonde appeared in the office, Temari turned around to face him. She had been standing by the window, trying to look at the streets from her brother's office. The Kazekage was currently in a meeting. She didn't step away from the window. She stayed there and watched Naruto sit down. She smiled. Where is your friend? She asked curiously. Training. Naruto responded calmly. Temari was curious. What sort of training? She asked. Why would he even come here of all places just to train that woman? Intel kind of training. Naruto paused and stared at Temari for a long minute. When was the last time it was just the two of us like this? I don't think this can be compared to the days of the past. There were no barriers back then. There was always some close proximity between us, Temari smiled. It was a bitter smile. That came crashing down when Orochimaru came my father and duped us into invading the Hidden Leaf. If not for the Sannin, she'd still have a father. She wouldn't be here. She'd probably be in Konoha now. Her father would be pushing for her to grow closer to Naruto. To love him. Because that had been his desire. The get-out clause had been his way to appear accommodating to Kushina. The woman probably knew. She was Naruto's mother after all. Because of Orochimaru, Naruto had nearly K her brother. He had nearly K them. But he let them leave. He let them live. He had understood the situation. It hadn't been their fault. It hadn't been her father's fault. Her father would have never betrayed Naruto and his mother. Not when he had been certain the future prosperity of Suna had been secured. Unwelcome realities, but that is what happens in this world. You can't control everything. You can't predict everything. Naruto responded calmly. The invasion did change things. I changed, but the one who changed the most was you. Perhaps it is because you learned of my actions here. Temari stared. Baki had informed him of what Naruto did. But Gaara had said they should never talk about it unless Naruto brings up the subject. She felt the urge to sit down. This wasn't the subject to discuss while standing. But she didn't want to sit next to him. She didn't hate him. She could never bring herself to hate the person who was so kind to her in the past. The person who helped her move past her misery, her fears and confusion. She sat on Gaara's chair and leaned back in silence. Baki did inform us. I have always been cautious about it. Why keep silent about it? Naruto shrugged nonchalantly. It never came to mind. It happened long ago and I consider it a dark past that I prefer not to talk about. He said. But I guess your concern isn't the act itself, but my reasons for doing it. Temari nodded. I'm not a good person. I know that. Some people accuse me of not having any moral integrity. I like to dispute that. Naruto said. The council knew everything. They knew everything. I couldn't forgive them. Sarai them. Gaara was the only person I could trust not to allow something like the invasion happen again. I trusted you guys to lead this village as my friends. I also considered that if it becomes necessary, fleeing to this village would be much simpler and safer with you people in charge. That was a way to look at it. But Temari didn't doubt those words. Her assumptions hadn't been kind and she could not be faulted. Naruto's silence hadn't helped matters either. She was certain that her brother would say he kind of suspected this to be the reason behind the move. I shouldn't have been worried, Temari said, shaking her head. My brother is in a meeting. I don't need to necessarily talk to him. Naruto said. He could even leave without talking to the Kazekage. I'm sure you've heard that one of Kumo's Jinchuriki was taken by the Akatsuki. Temari nodded. I just came to warn to be careful. But you needn't worry much because that person won't likely come here. His reason is to start war. He will go after the strongest knowing that the small will be pulled. War. Temari frowned. Couldn't they just enjoy this peace for longer? Was there someone who always had to come up with something crazy just to push this world into the brink? That person. The Uchiha who was behind the Akatsuki. It isn't something you have to worry about. He won't be alive for too long. Naruto said in a calm tone. There will be slight problems to deal with once he is gone. He is going to do some damage that might take some time to heal. What kind of damage? That is a good question, Temari. Temari could tell he didn't have everything figured out. He was waiting to see. But he wasn't concerned. He wasn't worried that a war could break loose. Or maybe he was and she just couldn't see what was happening. What are you really going to do, Naruto? That was a question she'd never asked the blonde. She has asked him many things but never straight out what he was plotting. This person is attaching the Akatsuki name into what he is doing. That comes back to both Jiraiya and I. Perhaps it puts Jiraiya in a compromising position. Naruto paused, seeing Temari's confusion. The leaders of the Akatsuki were students of Jiraiya who had lost their way. But we have managed to steer them into the right path. The person who was manipulating them is now the one who is a threat. He was speaking calmly. This was hardly the situation to be calm about. Wasn't it that he said that the Akatsuki, K1 of Kumo's Jinchuriki? If so, he would be linked to a group that could has pissed off the Raikage. It was a problem. And one Naruto certainly didn't need. You still haven't answered my question. Naruto shrugged. I didn't come here for it. I was paying a courtesy visit. Once I have seen enough or if Ino is caught, I will depart. He said as he stood up. Temari narrowed her eyes. What do you mean if she gets caught? What are you exactly having her do? Naruto just smiled. If you catch her, you'll find out. If not, a pity. He was gone after saying those words. Temari frowned and thought of cursing. But she bit her lip. She did not move from her position. She would wait to see what was happening. Naruto appeared atop of a building and settled in a meditative position, with his eyes closed. At this stage, he envied Karen's sensory abilities. Nagato had the same abilities. Perhaps the Rinnegan's wielder had his abilities refined due to many years of living and experience in battle. He could do what he could do. One couldn't achieve perfection on everything. That was given. He wasn't God. He was still a fragile human with limits. Now then, it was time to focus on Ino. Once he found her, he could observe her. If he struggled or failed to find her before soon as forces realize what she is doing, he could consider it a pass. There were different ways to pass this test. But failing was simply getting caught. Getting caught was game over. It was the end of the run. Somewhere close to Iwagakure. Once more, Obito halted both Mei and Sasuke's movements. This time around, there was no attack-like movements. He did have someone on his right shoulder nevertheless. Seeing them here, it made things simple. If they had turned back, he wouldn't have been able to do anything. He would not have been able to arrange this incident. It was going to cause chaos. He would rejoice in that chaos. He would sit back and watch them tear each other. He would have settled for just an attempt to assassinate, but emotions wouldn't be good as they would be with death. The loss of a loved one did cause people to behave in an unpredictable way. Lose themselves in anger. It was needed at this time. If things don't go according to plan, he would use the Rinnegan to his advantage. With how dangerous it has become, he needed to retrieve it. He had to do it. What do you want? Sasuke demanded, looking up at the masked Uchiha. I just need you to take this, Obito said before throwing the person on his shoulder towards the Mizukage. Sasuke intercepted it. His Sharingan didn't detect anything, so he caught the small body. There was a black rod through the heart. S. This person was S. The B was fresh. Their eyes widened. It was the Sandaime Tsuchikage. This person had K the Tsuchikage. What have you done? Mei demanded in a loud tone. She could sense multiple chakra sources moving towards them. They were without doubt Iwa shinobi. This person had done this, and wanted to frame them. The Tsuchikage was S. How were they going to explain this? She shouldn't have decided to come here. That should be obvious. It is my present to you. The man said. Iwa's forces think Sasuke K their cage. They did see him taking off after all. I'm sure you can explain that it wasn't you. He started to warp eye. His visible eye cold and menacing. A sinister devil. When we were attacked earlier, I felt that my chakra was being sucked. I didn't think it would be to frame me for this, Sasuke said furiously. He dropped the Tsuchikage's body. They could not outrun the enemy at this stage. Within seconds, they were surrounded by hundreds of Awagakure shinobi, led by a mad Kurotsuki. Sasuke realized, with the look she was giving him, nothing he would say would change things. She would not listen. The K intent was unmistakable. Kurotsuki stared at the two with the eyes of death. Her grandfather was lying cold on the ground. Their hands were B. Had the Mizukage orchestrated this? Was her request for a meeting a mere plot to K him? She had succeeded. Kurotsuki could give her a hand of praise. But there would be severe consequences. Without question. You are surrounded. Kurotsuki said coldly. If you surrender, your deaths will be swift. Sasuke snorted. He could wipe out everyone here. But he knew that doing so would only make things worse. He didn't need to fight. He didn't need to say anything. Doing so would be a waste of breath. He picked up the body of the Tsuchikage and hurled it towards Kurotsuki. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan morphed into life. He had been reserving this card to brutalize Naruto with it. But it had to be done. There was no safe escape. He released a massive output of chakra and caused even the Mizukage to step away, but he quickly grabbed her to stop her from moving. A monstrous purple form of pure chakra formed quickly. It horrified the Iwa shinobi. They fled upon its appearance. Only to safe distance. How do you fight something like that? The perfect Susanoo flapped its wings and took off in one huge blast that tore through the ground. There was a massive shockwave that tore through the trees, and blasted everything beneath. Up in the air, Mei was amazed. Such power. If he wanted, he could have destroyed them. So this is the power of the Sharingan. It is no wonder the Sharingan has always been feared, Mei said. You have this much power and yet, when I asked you if you were stronger than Naruto, you did not say. Naruto's prowess is something that I cannot fully measure because he doesn't reveal everything. He would rather use the Kyuubi's power than reveal all his aces. Sasuke said. But don't think that should be our biggest concern. Awagakure will be demanding both our heads. Mei lost all emotions on her face. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.